So it looks like Xbox Series S can run games at 4K and 120 frames per second all at the same time. Impressive, isn't it? Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I want to talk about Xbox Series S again. There's been quite a lot of news about this little console. People were calling Series S a potato, others were saying that it's going to hold next generation games back. And today I want to talk about a developer that confirms that this little console can do 4K and 120 frames per second at the same time. And I'm talking about a developer that created a game like that for that particular console. So I'm talking about Power Slave Exhumed game and this particular developer called Edward. Now Edward is a netcode and platform developer at MaDz Studios. They actually specialize in like remakes, HD versions of older games, like they made Quake 2 remake, for example, or remaster. I think it's called remaster, which runs runs great on all consoles really, and actually PC as well. And they made a game called Power Slave Exhumed, which is really a sort of an HD version of the old classic FPS game from PC really. And by the way, very cool game. I've seen some gameplay of that game and stuff. Xbox Tester actually has got a gameplay of that game on his channel, so check it out as well. The Xbox Tester on YouTube. And he basically confirms that the Power Slave Exhumed is actually running at 4K and 120 frames per second. Now, he also added that Xbox Series S has a surprising amount of headroom, that 4K 120 maybe are achievable on future KEX titles as well. So he's talking about some other titles as well. And he's basically saying that people are underselling its performance potential. So this is an interesting thing because obviously a lot of people say that Xbox Series S is a potato and that it's not really a next-gen console. But you know, I can't remember any last-gen console delivering 4K at 120 frames per second. I mean, there was hardly any games at proper 4K and 60. Well, maybe Xbox One X had a couple of games like that, but that was pretty much it. And this console can do it no problem. And so obviously Power Slave Exhumed is not really the most demanding graphically game, but delivering any game not only at 4K but also 120 frames per second at the same time. And I'm saying at the same time. We're not talking about like different modes like 4K 60 and like 1080p 120 frames per second as many games do. No, we're talking about a game that runs at 4K and 120 frames per second at the same time. So that's very impressive, no matter what kind of game we're talking about. Even if that was to be like a 2D sprite kind of game, that would be still impressive because like just pushing so many pixels at 120 frames per second is actually a tough job, right? No matter what kind of game we're talking about. And we're talking about a 3D game still, right? So that's kind of even more impressive, I guess. So obviously, you know, he's still saying that, and obviously this particular tweet is from March, but he kind of reminded all of us about this tweet like yesterday. So, and I think he was just, I guess, you know, not necessarily forced, but triggered by what has been said about Series S lately. And like I said, guys, I understand that some developers may not be the biggest fans of this console. Also, it's interesting because MaDz Studios is the same studio that MVG works for. So, you know, he's actually one of the developers as well. I'm sure you know MVG. You know, he's got a YouTube channel. He shows kind of cool things. Like he's got this series on Xbox Series S emulation of PlayStation 2 games, but he's got plenty of other titles, videos as well. And he was on who was that? He was on somebody's channel recently. I'm talking about MVG, where he was asked about Xbox Series S potential and whether he believes that Series S will hold next generation games back. And he basically said that no, he doesn't see that as an issue. Oh, he was on Spawn Wave, a podcast. And he basically said that, yes, there's obviously some issues with that console, and obviously developers would like to have more power, more clock speed, more memory. And I think that memory is the biggest really issue with Xbox Series S right now. And I will actually have a video on Xbox Series S memory maybe tomorrow. I was actually planning that video like 2 days ago, but then we were just constantly bombarded with a lot of other news, which I really wanted to cover as well. So I'll have that video very soon, because you need to remember that Xbox Series S and really PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X were designed with a different technology in mind, and basically in order to take full advantage of these consoles, developers really need to create a bit different game engines, right? They really need to be like multi-threaded. I'm talking about CPU performance. They have to take full advantage of like velocity architecture in order to free up some CPU cycles on Xbox Series X, for example, right? Because without that, Xbox Series S and X still have to handle, the texture decompression, for example. SFS is going to play a crucial role, not necessarily in giving Xbox Series S and X more power, but it will give Xbox Series S more flexibility when it comes to memory, for example. SFS, in my opinion, will actually allow developers to take a better advantage of that console. That should allow for higher resolutions and that kind of stuff, right? So I think that we don't really have anything to worry about when it comes to Xbox Series S, and that console is great. It's great. It offers great price, enough of a performance for that kind of price. So yeah, guys, Xbox Series S is a little beast, I would say. It's not necessarily a console for me, because I rather play at like higher resolutions with a little bit more graphic settings and that kind of stuff. But there's plenty of people that don't necessarily care about it. Like my son, he loves that console, and there's other people like that as well. So guys, that's the video. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Thanks for support, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.